Good evening, good evening, good evening. Happy Sunday, Sister Girls. Welcome to our April. What month is it? It's March. Oh my gosh.
I know.
Eating through the months. It's March. Welcome to our March book chat. We have the lovely Lauren Lacey joining us this evening to discuss her latest release, The World Around Us. Hi, Lauren. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We are like, this book has kind of like, this has been everywhere. Like, you have to read this book, you have to read this book, you have to read this book. And I was like, once I started reading the book, I was like, okay, now that I've started reading the book, I actually have to learn about the book. Yes. Girl. Um, okay. But before we get into the book, let's just start with a few icebreaker questions to get warmed up and get to know you, Lauren,
Yay.
a little
Okay,
bit.
awesome.
Water, wine, coffee, or tea?
Ooh. And it has to be of the three.
Well, it was four, but
Okay, four, yes. I would say tea.
okay.
Yeah. But I should drink more water. I really should.
We all should drink your water, folks. Morning or night?
Night.
I'm a night owl too.
Yes, I'm productive at night.
Okay. Digital or print?
Digital.
Standalone or series?
Ooh. Okay, I am a sucker for a series, but lately I've been leaning towards the standalones because it just seems like that's like rare nowadays.
It is. And music or quiet?
Ooh. I would say quiet.
Okay. That was a good one. And if you are watching from anywhere on the internet, Facebook, YouTube, X, hop in the chat, say hi, interact with us, leave your questions for Lauren, and we will get them answered. So, Miss Lauren, where are you from? And when you aren't writing, what are you doing?
Okay, I am from Savannah, Georgia.
Okay, I figured.
Down yes, down south. I'm a Southern girl. I've always lived. Well, okay, so let me back up. I was born in California because I was a military child, but all I know is Savannah.
Oh,
My family's from Savannah. My mom was only stationed there for like 2 years, so then we moved back home. So Savannah is just in my blood. That's
Ma-
where I'm from.
what is the air? Was she in the Air Force? Or
Vandenberg Air Force Base.
that's how my cousins ended up in Atlanta.
Oh wow,
My
really?
uncle was in the Air Force. They're military
Mhm,
bred, and
mhm.
that's how some of my family ended up in Georgia because my uncle that was his land station,
Mhm.
and so that's where. And I'm always in Atlanta because I'm always visiting them. So yep,
Yeah. Yep, that is, yeah, I've always loved Atlanta. We would always go there. It was like the big city, like,
yeah,
coming from Savannah. And so I moved to Atlanta, I think back in like 2014.
okay.
And better opportunity, and it was just like a much bigger city than Savannah, and I've been here since. And this is my home. I actually went to college too in Atlanta, so it just made sense to just go where. Yeah, and so when I am not writing, I am running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I have three kids, and I have two bonus babies, so five
Oh,
altogether.
you busy? You busy? Busy?
Yes, and so I'm running after them. I work from home, and I'm able to kind of get a lot of work done. In my daytime, I am a computer web strategist. I used to code and build websites. Now I just kind of manage the strategic stuff, and I stay home with my 5-year-old, and she keeps me busy. And
Oh, you got a COVID baby.
yes, and the crazy thing, so she was born October 2019, and then boom, March comes. So she's been home with me ever since.
Oh, she's here.
Yes, yes,
So
and
how old is
she acts
you?
like it. Yeah. So, and then I seldom or occasionally I'll coach soccer. Their soccer team, and my daughters, they do dance. My son does coding, so it's just a busy house.
How do you keep track of all those people and their hobbies and their extracurriculars?
I can barely keep track of their names. Well, thankfully, my mother-in-law, she stays here with us, so she's like a godsend. So she helps out, taking them to school or taking them to all their extracurriculars. And I couldn't do it without her, to be honest.
No, I love it. And I think we need, more positive iterations of that
Mhm.
mother-daughter-in-law relationship, because you always hear about the bad ones. I love
Mhm.
hearing about, mother-in-laws who actually welcome their daughters. Like,
Mhm.
not you losing your son, it's you gaining a daughter. So I think that's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah, and my son, my husband, he just here hanging out. He just live here.
No, don't do them like that.
No, he's great. He's supportive. When I was like, I really want to write. He was just always behind me. If I have this crazy idea, he's just like, all right, do it. It's like,
That brings me to my next question. What inspired you to become an author?
I always wanted to write. Like when I was in college, everybody thought I was going to be a teacher because I majored in English. But honestly, that was the only thing I was good at in college. Like I can write. Don't give me a test. Don't give me anything to do with math or science. Just let me do some reading and let me do some writing. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do when I got out, but I wanted it to have to do with writing. So I started doing social media marketing, and that's how I got into like the world of digital. But one day we decided to take a vacation. And so we went to Disney World for our romantic vacation.
This hold on now. Disney World is my favorite place on earth.
It
So
is. We're
yeah,
big Disney fans.
I'm
Like
a huge Disney. I'm a Disney girl. Like my dream is to visit every park on earth. Like I want to, especially the one in Tokyo.
yes, I heard so many great things. Like, oh my
So
gosh, yes.
you talk,
So
you listen. So you're talking to the right person, because Disney
okay,
is,
good. Because like it's crazy when I'm like, oh, we're gonna go to Disney again. And they're like, again? Yes. Like you can never do
it's
one.
always changing, and it's so much to do. It's like, first of all,
Yes.
it's 6 different parks.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta pick which parks you want to do, and then it's hot as crap no matter what
Yes.
time you go. So you
Yes.
wear yourself out, and you have to have it. Like I'm very strategic when it comes to
Me
Disney. I'm
too.
like, listen, get up, let's get these
Get our reservations for our rides.
let's
The it's not the lightning lane. And
together. Let's see what rides we all agree on, where we're gonna go our separate ways. Because I know my mama want to spend 45, 50, 50, 11 minutes in Harry Potter land because she loves that part. Because we never just do Disney.
Mhm.
We always do Disney and Universal.
Yeah, we do too.
So it's by the time you get back, they didn't build a whole other section of the park. It's like,
Exactly. Last time we finally did the Tron, and then I know that they're building some more stuff with Universal with the Nintendo land and expanding Harry Potter. So I'm like, okay, time to go to Disney and
there
Universal.
are some places you go, and every time you can have a new experience.
Exactly.
So no, you are. This is safe. I'm
Yes.
just
Okay. So we were at Disney for a week. It was just me and him, no kids. So it was like a different experience for us because we're always with the kids. And I was like, I want to do something that I always wanted to do. I have no distractions. And I just sat in the hotel room and I started writing. And that was like the end of 2022. And I was just like, I'm just gonna see it. Like, I don't know what I'm gonna do with this. So I was like, I'm just gonna see it. And I just started writing and it felt so good, and I'm a very random, like I'm just gonna write how I feel.
Wow.
so and so that's how it really began. That's how I got started.
So are you also an avid reader?
I am. And I had taken a break for a while once I started writing. And so I would say I definitely started reading again, I would say in the past 6, 7 months. And I buddy read with my two good friends.
Okay.
Well, I tried to buddy read with them, but one of them, and they probably watch them, one of them kind of sneaky and she be reading.
She even had and try not to give y'all the spoilers. That would be me.
Yeah, and it was like next thing you know, she done reading. So
That's why I don't buddy read, because I need to read at my own pace. Because when it gets good, maybe I'm up at 2 o'clock in the morning. Like,
yes. So for me, I've been able to read in between writing now. I didn't really know how to get the balance because I wanted to have like a clear head when writing, but then I also needed something when I needed a break from writing because I just felt like a funk. And so I had recently I read some really good books.
okay, can you give us 3 that our sister girls have to read? Just give us 3 good books.
I don't know if y'all read it yet.
Matter.
I listened to the audiobook of Beautiful Broken Love by Shanora Williams.
Okay.
That was great. Yes. And then a new author, it's very cute and quirky novella, Evie Daniels, Behind the Forecast.
Never heard of it.
Brand new. It was really great. I enjoyed it. It got a little spicy too.
I love spice. I'm a girl for spice. Okay.
And then I've been reading another indie author. Her name is Danny M. Ward. I read her Crimson book. She's paranormal, some fantasy with like black vampires, and I was like, ooh. So I'm reading
now.
Yes. So I read. I'm reading now. I'm reading The Lottery. Danny M. Ward by her. So those are my.
That's so. 2 out of 3 I never heard of. So that's good. I read a lot. So. So now that we know a little more about you, and I see we have some people, viewing and looking in on us, make sure you guys say hi in the chat and put your questions in the chat. And Raylan, I do see your question. We're going to get to that question a little more once we get a little more in depth with the book. What was your inspiration behind this particular novel, The World Around Us, and how did you go about developing the characters? And are there any specific methods or tools that you use?
Yeah, I love a small town. Okay. And so I always think about the town first and the type of people that I know and the type of person that I am. And so I always start with this aspect of thinking about my hometown of Savannah. And I think about how everybody knows everyone and how even within our community, there are always these secrets. And so I like having like a little bit of, I'll say a lot of bit of drama. And then like, just some.
I said mystery.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely some mystery in there. And I think that the mystery for me comes from more personal experiences where we're finding out some, traumatic things in our families or within our friend groups. And we're like, well, we never knew that, or like something like situations that have shaken up, relationships. And so I just decided to throw in some mystery in the world around us. My characters are always a bit of myself. So, with whatever part of my life, it could be some toxic traits. It could be some enduring traits, but I always really kind of bring it back home to the people I know and the person that I am. And so for me, that's really how The World Around Us came about. I knew I wanted to do a sports romance. I love sports. I actually played soccer in college. And back in the day, I played basketball and volleyball and everything else. And so I just really started writing. I was just like, I was in a mood. I was in a funk for about 2 months prior. And I was like, let me see if I can come up with something. I know what I want to talk about. Let me just go off my emotions. And
then you went and wrote 500 pages and was like,
yes. I can be a wordy birdie. I'm trying.
I prefer longer books. That's just me though. Mm-hmm. I see anything past a 400 page count, I'm like, I'm in heaven.
Yes, because you get so much. Like, I feel like you start to really connect with the characters and feel something like you're a part of that world. And
I think when you're developing your own place, you have the world building has to be a character within itself. So you have to understand. So it's not like, so if you place this in Atlanta, and granted, some parts were in Atlanta. People know about Atlanta. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to make Atlanta a character because people already have this preconceived notion of what Atlanta is like. Same with New York, same with Philly. Whether you've been there, whether you've heard about these big urban cities. Yeah. So when you do something like what you did with Greer and I can't make it the other one right off the top because Greer was the main place, but it was other smaller.
Yeah, Beverly Mills. Yeah.
Beverly Mills where Monica is from. Yeah. So it's like, they become a character. You have to get used to them the same way you get used to the characters. So I think when you do create towns, it does take a little while longer because this is all new information to the reader.
Exactly. Yeah. Yep. And I think that was hard to do too, because, I like to do like that comparison too, where a lot of my books, it'll have Atlanta as this focal point because you know how Atlanta is in Georgia. But then it's like, if you're not from Georgia, Atlanta is really that kind of outlier. It's not the norm because it's surrounded by all these small.
The same thing about Philly. Pennsylvania is, I think, like the 7th largest, or like Pennsylvania is a massive state. And Philly is actually in the corner of Pennsylvania. So it's like right on the edge.
Yeah.
And then you have all of this rural farmland, and Pittsburgh is a city, but it's not a city like Philly's a city. Like, and this is, I went to school in Pittsburgh, so I can say that wholeheartedly. Pittsburgh is not like, you can't say, like, when you think about Philly, you don't think about Pittsburgh in comparison. So Philly is the same way. It's like, this little dot in Pennsylvania. That's why Philly people like, Philly is its own state. Like, everything is different here.
Exactly. That's exactly how it is. And so, you know, I think that's I think it's helpful, you know, when putting that in books, where you kind of show this larger city, but then you also show what it's really about, like what the whole state is about. And so, you know, I always try to like give those cozy vibes, those small town, the kind of the twang, and, you know, kind of the community aspect and found family. I think that's really important when world building. And so that's something I wanted to incorporate, because I felt like every single character in the story, they had a purpose. And I really wanted the readers to kind of feel connected to them too.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
Because definitely was a tearjerker.
Sorry about that.
It is fine. Because I was like, is this a romance novel? Like, what? Like, not with my reading that way. And I'm like, can we like let's talk about tropes, okay? Let's talk about tropes. Yeah. A second chance romance. It's like, everybody's like, it's a second chance romance, but this is a fifth chance romance, okay?
I agree.
Everybody's like, it's a second chance sports romance. I think I'm going into something. My mind was not prepared to what I was going into. Because I was like, okay, a second chance football romance. Cool. I'm into it. But that's not what this is.
No, and I always tell people, you know, expect kind of like a blend of some women's fiction. I think that would be fair.
A mystery novel with it's like a melting pot almost. Like, yes, we get that second chance romance. I guess you have to call it second chance romance because that's what the trope is called. Even though they tried to at 4 years old, at 10 years old, at 14 years old, at 16 years old.
It took a while they had to get it together.
In college, right after college. It was like 6 or 7. I was like, Tiffany was ready, finally ready. Mason said, no, I'm having a nervous breakdown, baby. Hold on a minute. Wait a minute, baby. This is what you've been asking for 30 years.
Well, all his life, he been wanting this girl.
You've been waiting for this for 30 years since you was 4. And I tried not to be upset with him as a big person, especially for Black men and mental health advocacy. I was like,
it's like, you better take it. You better come on out.
I get it. I was like, I completely empathize with where he's coming from. This was a lot of new information. Yeah. But at the same time, sir, if homegirl tie up them sneakers and run the other way, you know she a bit scattered.
And the crazy thing is, I had some mixed reactions, like mixed feedback on that. They were like, now hold on. They were like, it's not fair for her to get mad or give him an ultimatum. Where some people were like, he needs to come on and take this and get better, like in the process.
I felt both ways. Like I said, I'm a huge mental health advocate, like huge. I worked in mental health the first 7 years of my career. I've had my own struggles with mental health. I think we as a community need to be more supportive, and especially I think a lot of the sports podcasts have been doing a great job talking about what it's like to be in that kind of in those kind of situations. We don't even go into like this young man who's thrust, like, yes, he's a big fish in a small pond in Greer, but now he's a big person in the world, like on the world stage. And I got where she was coming from, because as me being a private person, I don't think I would be able to, I don't put my business out there for the world to see. That's rude.
Exactly.
So it was like, I get why people would be frustrated, but at the same time, he has given her so much that
Yeah. He's been there. Like I feel like oftentimes too, like the male characters that I'll write, they are very giving. They're very, a lot of people will say sensitive, but I really say they openly express themselves, and they will chase after what they want and the woman that they love. And for me, that's what I've known. My dad has always been supportive of my mom. He's been there for us, taking care of us, because his job was always more flexible. But then he was still like, the head of the household and stuff. And like, my husband's very strong and caring, but he's also that man that's going to make sure everybody's taken care of. And so, I'll like with Mace, I wanted to like show that it is okay to be this type of man, and still feel, how you want to feel, or like strong. And I felt like that's the type of character he was. He was giving, he was loving, he knew what he wanted, and he did not waver. So I think that's important.
Let's talk about the plot points, because for this love story, like I don't want to call it a love story because it was so much more, but how did you plot this out? Like when you just say you just started writing, it was so much going on, not in a bad way, but it was so much going on. It was like
Yes.
the beginning was so flowery and
it was so sweet. They were like flirting. And then Tiny and Tiffany's story.
Right. It was so dramatic. And I was like, wait a minute. Again, all anybody told me is this was a second chance sports romance. So
why did they set you up like that?
That's the real question that needs answered. Why was I set up like that? This was such a good love story. Like I guess I'm like, oh, okay, well, this is great. I love a good second chance romance and sports romance. Like that's okay. Let's do this. That's not what this was. So how did you develop those plot points? Like how did you pull those pieces together of, let's see, kidnapping and child abduction, drug abuse and molestation, an arsonist, a liar, a pedophile. Like it was just so many different plot points going on, and we didn't even talk about other people's stories. Like everybody else has a story too. I mean, and they, like you said, like this was a great introduction. Nobody's screen time was wasted per se. So, but where did this come from?
So Greer is actually a spinoff. This series is actually a spinoff from my first series, The Love in Beverly Mills. And so I had some characters in there, like Monica, for instance. Her full backstory was in my second book that I ever published, Love You Finally. And it's so heartbreaking. It is very similar to
do I want to go read this?
Like, no, you might not. Look here. Like I had a call with the book club, and I was very, I'm very adamant. I'm very transparent, letting them know what's in there, and, because those triggers should be there. But I wanted to bring her back for her happy ending. And, with her and with she and Rafe, she deserved it. A lot of people had asked me about it. And she was really like my glue. I started off with Monica. I knew I wanted her to put her in the story somehow, but I didn't want to hark on her, but I still wanted her to be in there so she can get her happy ending. And I started building characters around her. And I had built
Nicole,
yes.
Tiffany becomes her college roommate.
And
they kind of have this shared traumatic past, which gets them to kind of open up and understand each other.
Yeah. Because I felt like everyone, and I think like our college days, in college or, in late high school, we've met people that have stuck with us for forever in some way. And I felt like with that main character, I wanted her to be strong, but I honestly feel like we need people around us that can get us to that point, or that complements our personality. And it kind of helps us become a better person. So I really feel like the people that I had put around her that were good, for Tiffany, I felt like having that Monica was in a sense a piece of her sister, Tiny.
Mhm.
And I felt like she needed that. She needed that as a reminder of why she's doing whatever she's doing, because she's put in this place where she's living a good life now. And it's easy to forget that. It's easy to forget where you come from. It's easy to forget your reason why you're doing something. And so Monica was central to Tiffany. You had her friend that she had met, that she was adopted into, rather, her family. And she's going to have her own story. Yes, Mel's going to have her own story. Um, you needed someone who is a little bit lighter, that doesn't have that hasn't necessarily been through a lot of pain, but maybe pain in her own way. But it's not.
I was say, but we were clued in that she has some issues too, because
Yes,
she takes her vitamins every day.
you gotta take her vitamins, and she is a wild one in her book. But her trauma and her troubles are different than what Tiffany had experienced, within her life. And so I really wanted to just create a diverse cast, with what they're going through, and add some positivity. I thought Rafe was a good character to add kind of like some lightness and some, and then Mace for his enduring, heartfelt ways. And so I really centered around Monica, and then I focused on Tiffany and what she needed to help her become the woman that she is today. And that's kind of how I
Sisterhood definitely was, like, that's why I say this book was so much more than a romance novel.
Mm-hmm.
It was filled with just so many relationships and connections that were really important to the story, and pushing Tiffany out of her comfort zone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would even say, even for the parents that were in the book, the governor and Judge Boom and Mel's family, I really wanted to have this strong unit of middle class, upper middle class Black men and women, and they're raising their kids together and really just wanting them and to do better or have more than what they may have had. And so I felt like having those positive representations versus what she experienced with mama, that's what she needed also.
Mm-hmm. To see that not all relationships look like this.
Exactly.
Because even with the women who were helping her, Miss Harriet, Dora, they weren't in healthy relationships. So she could see a strong Black woman that you don't have to be like your mother. But in order for for her to have a sense of, oh, you can also have a healthy relationship, she needed to see that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I loved our Aunt Dora too, by the way.
We all need an Aunt Dora though. I think that a lot of our communities are missing Aunt Doras. But that's because you can't tell kids nothing anymore.
Yes.
Like I tell people all the time, when I was growing up, I was scared of my neighbors. Not scared, but like I revered my neighbors because my mom made me, like, they could tell on me. Like they could tell me what to do and what not to do. Like my neighbors, I grew up in the same neighborhood that my mom grew up in. So they watched, like they knew everybody. My mom and my dad, they grew up in the same neighborhood, so everybody knew whose child I was. And it was like, I can't do nothing in this neighborhood. My aunt, my uncles, everybody lived in the same neighborhood. I couldn't be sneaky. I had to go to West Philly and other places to be sneaky. But that's here there because I'm grown now. I don't have to be sneaky. When I wanted to be a sneaky teenager, I not allowed to go out. I was not allowed to do, like, baby, okay. I lived on my block. My grandma lived on like right behind us. Couldn't be sneaky. Whatever. Now that we laughing and giggling and all lighthearted, I have a question.
Yes.
How did you cope with writing with the darker themes in this book? Because there was a lot of dark.
It was dark. It was
like, we're flashlight.
When I was writing it, I'm always crying. Like if I'm reading something from that book right now, I'm gonna cry. Like I
was like, oh my gosh, I'm crying again. Like, this is terrible.
Yes. And it happens all the time when I'm writing something. My husband's like, why are you crying? You writing? I was like, yeah. I was like, oh, I am. But no, I listen to music to get me through. And it is, I would listen to a mixture of music. A lot of the music I listen to is gospel, because sometimes I feel like if it's something heavy on my heart, then I need to kind of get that out my spirit.
Yeah.
because, you know, I'm writing these things. So I'm depositing all of these feelings and these thoughts inside me. And so in order for me to get to back to my safe space, especially for like triggers, you know, I need to, you know, kind of listen to something, or I'll listen to something just lighthearted. Some of my favorite, you know, artists, Beyonce, or if I'm going for my old school gospel, I'm gonna listen to some Fred Hammond. But I'm like Beyonce, Fred Hammond, you know, I'll listen to just something that really soothes my soul.
Okay. So are you lasting church girl and like getting up and
Yes, and I'm just not putting my kids on to Beyonce, because now they're like, at first they were hating, but like the other day my daughter said, "Can you put on Diva?" I said,
oh,
"Yes."
immediately. Alexa, let's go.
Yes. Listen, I am a proud Beehive member. I am going to see her in concert whenever she is in Atlanta. I'm going.
I heard that. So yeah, this was dark. It was definitely a tearjerker. I was like, wait, I'm telling you, I was like,
When is the happy ending coming?
not even necessarily when is the happy ending coming, but I was like,
Oh my gosh.
is everybody okay? Are we all okay? Because it was like every time it would get to a point where it was like, oh, things are going smoothly. Okay. We got to a point where it was like, oh, this is great. This is wonderful. Tiny's getting help. Everything is, and then it was like boom, boom, bang. And I was like, wait a minute.
Yes, I had fun writing that, because I was like, I had so much.
So here it was some gentle foreshadowing going on, because when she first got adopted by Mel's parents, I recall there was a text message that was sent out and was like, if you ever hurt my sister again, you don't have to worry about hurting me. I'm gonna like blank you.
Yes.
And I was like, does she remember she said that? Because this is premeditated. Like, girl, delete the messages, please. But by the time he had a different phone and so much had happened. And another point that came up is just the injustice of it all. It's like, granted, Tiffany. I'm gonna keep saying her name like that because, girl, who are you?
She created her own identity.
She never changed her name. I was like,
she stuck with that.
I guess there's no point in her going. No, in my mind, I was like, it's no point in her going back to being a Lynn, because she already knows she's going to become a Boom.
Yeah.
In my brain, like, she knows it's coming. So she said, you know what? I'm not changing my name multiple times.
I feel like for her, I didn't want to change her name because she made something out of herself, and you know, she was proud of what she's been able to do with what life gave her. And so, you know,
good too. Your reason is good too. I'm gonna stick with mine. Yes, yeah. I like your reason, but I'm gonna stick with my reason. It's cool. I know these your characters, but they mine now. So also, because she knew she was gonna get married to a man and change her last name, and she said, "I'm not doing this." That's a lot of paperwork. I'm not doing this.
Yes, that is a lot of paperwork.
I think a lot of people know how much paperwork goes into change. You have to change on the bank accounts, on the government stuff. Like, it's a lot of paperwork.
Much.
So, yeah. So it was like, I do want to know. Mason knew in his heart who Tiffany was and was sure of it. Like, he knew at 10. The first time he saw her at 10, he said, that's who I've been looking for. What took him so long to gather the family and finally say, listen, I need y'all to hear me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I know y'all think I'm crazy. I know y'all think I'm obsessed, but I know what I know, what I know.
I think for him, because he was so young when he believed it with like his whole heart, with his whole chest. And I think for his parents, they were at a point where they were trying to move on from that pain. And, you know, for his stepmother, for, you know, Governor Carter, she had lost her husband, and then his dad lost his wife. And then they're also having these complicated feelings because they're feeling some way towards each other. And, you know, there was just like so much turmoil that, and they still had to be parents. It was like, I have to get over this. We need to move past this. And my child needs help. And, you know, for Mace, he had been going through therapy for so long. And it was like, in a sense, he believed it, but it was like everyone else was trying to erase it. They were trying to erase this idea that they could come back, or especially with the Lens, who were still on the search, and they felt sorry for them because they felt like they weren't accepting reality. All of their friends felt like the Lens were still searching for these people that didn't exist anymore. So I think that he had to learn how to wipe it out his memory and convince himself that, he's just imagining this thing. But there was always hints there, and it got to the point where he was like, okay, I just need to see if this is what this is. Because he was,
thing that like pissed me off, not at you, but at like the story, because I know you didn't do it on purpose. It's just the story that was given to you, like a little gift. And I was just like, oh my gosh, my anxiety. It's like, how are they not bumping into this lady? How does she not know this is her child? Surrogate? How, like, come on.
Yes.
And I guess with Tiffany and Tiny, or she doesn't want to be Tiny anymore. Taylor. Being twins, I'm like, did she just develop quicker? Like, I don't know. But I was like, I think that part gave me so much anxiety. Like,
that was tough because I had to figure out, okay, how are they going to be different? And so I tried to like put in these physical characteristics, especially with them living in the down south College Park area. I used to live there, and you always got, in any hood, you got like the old heads, and then they see these overly developed. You look, you're 12, you can't control how you're developing, and they would come and approach these girls. And so I tried to kind of,
the gentrification of Black girls happens at a way more rapid rate than it does any other race or ethnicity.
Exactly. And then they're often told to cover up, or they're often told to
being fast.
Yes, exactly. And so, for Tiffany and Tiny, they physically, they had these distinct changes. And I hate how Tiffany's story played out, in the beginning and the middle, and and I just wish I could have brought them together sooner, but I couldn't. So
I think she needed that time to, like you said, to make a name for herself, to come into herself, because I don't think she would have been as accepting of that connection or relationship. And then it's like, I don't feel like Kayla, Shirley, whoever she want to be, I don't feel like she got her just due. She should not be in jail.
I agree.
Because the fact that she was drugging 2 4-year-old children is diabolical in itself.
Very much.
Then you just an arsonist out here? Like, you just out here setting anybody in your way on fire? Like, girl.
Listen, I might need to get Governor Carter to pull some strings, because she could be a little shady.
I think so as well, because I don't think jail is, I know I ain't supposed to be the person who judge, and jail was not enough. Jail was not enough, because how do you do that? Like, and granted, you were only a surrogate, but how do you do that to children?
Yeah. And
I think like they were still your children.
Yeah. And this was hard for me because I know some women who have done some evil things, and I've met them, I've seen them, I've heard of them throughout my life. And then couple that with, I wanted to specifically focus, like, okay, they were caught up in like the 80s when the crack epidemic had hit hard. That impacted my family. It impacted a lot of friends, and they were strung out for 15, 20 years, and I have seen them do some stuff. And things were
research.
You
just had to use your imagination.
Yeah. It was a lot of research and a lot of imagination, where it weren't those particular instances, but there were instances of child abuse. There were instances of, neglect and, drug addiction. Like some of the scenes with Shirley and stealing a car, like those are actual scenes that, so yes, a lot of that.
It was very unfortunately, like, a lot of us have had those, even if we haven't experienced it like firsthand, we know somebody who has,
Yeah.
and or we know a family member. Like, it's just, I hate that that's so many people's stories.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like, wow, like I just couldn't believe somebody would do this to kids. But like you say, Criminal Minds is one of my favorite TV shows, and sometimes I watch that and I'm like, people really are out here just doing some really horrible, diabolical, disgusting, downright dirty things to children, and to people in general, but specifically to children. I guess, we all like look at children like they're children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I guess just that's why I say, Shirley, you don't deserve prison because you carried these children. And I was kind of mad at the lens because I feel like y'all should have did more research. But then I think about it too. This was the 80s. It wasn't like how it is now, where you could literally kind of.
Yeah.
I've been trying to give grace, but I'm just like, how didn't y'all? But she was so manipulative.
Yeah.
I struggle back and forth. I don't know.
It was really hard, and I was like, well, I do have that advantage of, we weren't in the digital age, with their childhood, and just how much, how they say, the world is not as safe as it used to be. No, it was just as dangerous. We just didn't know.
I tell my mom that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
I tell my mom that all the time. It's actually a report. I think it came out a couple years ago, and it might not be as true now because so much has happened. The world was actually more secure and more safe now because you can't do anything without being caught. Like, even if you don't think you're being caught, you're caught. Because of because of media, because of digital stuff, because cameras are everywhere. So it's actually more safe now. It just doesn't, because it's exploited more. The dangers and the things that are happening is exploited more. You think it's safe, but it's not true. And we had this conversation because I'm like, girl, the stuff that she was doing at my age, and she's always like, but it's not the thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know how many serial killers I could pull up?
There are so many unsolved murders and kidnappings, and these cold case files, because the technology wasn't there. The accessibility wasn't there.
Yeah, and that's how I feel like when I was thinking about this, I like, in terms of the book, I had to put my mindset back there because I'm like, y'all are so close. Y'all are this close to figuring this out. Why is nobody? Why is Mason the only person like seeing red? Like, hello, pick up the phone.
Vanilla. Like, come
on. And it was so unfortunate. And I do, of course, it's easier to feel bad for Tiffany because her trauma was so blaring. But Tiffany, like, I can't imagine having all of my memories wiped away and being brainwashed. That was a lot.
And I know a lot of people, just personally to this day, who have experienced so much trauma until there are parts that they don't remember about their life.
Sure. It's a big thing.
Yeah. And I hate that. We're in a world where things like this have to happen, to where you can't even experience your full lifetime. Your
brain is protecting you.
Exactly.
And speaking of trauma, it was so many secrets between Mace and Tiffany, and so much trauma. Were you always sure that this relationship was going to have a happily ever after?
Yes, because I knew they deserved it, but I didn't know how they were going to get to it. Because every single time I wanted to, like, maybe put a cap on it or end it, I felt like it wasn't the right time. And I felt like there are always moments where he was ready and she was ready, but I'm like, it wouldn't fit right. Like, it's not fully coming together.
You would write it if you didn't give them a happily ever after.
I would never not write a happily ever after.
Okay.
Yes, but it's just, it needs to be fulfilling. It will even, like, I know some people, they have said, child, they should just gave up.
I don't feel like, only because the trauma wasn't towards each other. It was just
exactly, it was around them.
It was that right person, wrong time scenario multiple times. And then with Tiffany taking on Drew, it took like
Mhm.
her life took on a completely different
Exactly.
a completely different route than even she thought that she was going to take.
Yeah.
So, and I completely understand why she felt responsible for that little life, because
Mhm.
in her mind she said, "It's no way I'm going to allow this little life to endure and go through the things that I had to experience to get to this." It
Mhm.
took her years to get comfortable being in her new life.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I love the role that Mesa taken on too in Drew's life. I felt like it was a foreshadowing of what their happily ever after could look like, and just how good they fit together. Even like they weren't together, but they were still working to make sure everyone around them was really making to make sure that Drew was okay. And I really enjoyed that aspect writing that.
How did you decide? Hold on, let me make sure I ask this question properly. How did you decide that Drew would continue to call Nicole Tiffany, Tiffany Nicole mom, instead of Taylor once she was released and came back, even though he knew the truth?
This was a little difficult, but
It felt
I
difficult.
yeah. I think because of Tiny's healing, I think that helped. The healing that she experienced, being in prison. It's kind of crazy that people are like, she's in prison. What do you mean healing? She felt like she was finally in a safe space to where she could get her GED. She can go, get help. And, she had started going to therapy and accepting that, I gave birth to him, but, she did not have that. She might have had that, genealogical connection or that blood bond, but she didn't raise him. And she trusted her sister enough and the people around Drew to raise this little boy. And I felt like, forcing that relationship of this person where he loves her, that's his mother, and he empathizes for her. I think it wouldn't have felt natural to call her mom. I think that Tiffany really poured her love into Drew. And I think that because he grew up in such a loving environment, that it felt right. And I really enjoyed that aspect that, they had to start building a relationship. That's their new life today, is that he is building a relationship with his biological mother. And I think that is nice and mature of Tiny to be okay with not, him calling her mom.
And technically, since they're twins, genetically, that is her child.
Yes.
I mean, that's how. I mean, think about it. Maybe they're fraternal twins or something, because
Yeah, I would say they were more for fraternal twins because
I
I think,
would say, genetically, they're her child.
listen, they do look alike.
So, but I was that was a question that I just had, because I know how those parent
Yeah.
reentries can definitely be difficult
Hmm.
emotionally and mentally, especially with an older child. He was 16 when she came
Yeah.
home. So it's like, this woman has raised me for 16 years. She's done the child rearing. She's done the hard part.
Hmm.
So, yeah. So Raylan has a question. Who is your favorite character that you have written so far?
Ooh, um, my favorite character in the story. I think. Oh,
So far that you've written is what the question said.
ooh, okay. um, I think my favorite character would have to be. I would say it'd have to be a split between Avery, the character in my second book, Love You Finally. She had gone through so much trauma and she got her happy ending. And then it would be, okay, I'll take that back. It would be Tiffany from The World Around Us. I love how strong she is. I love how stubborn she can be, but she makes the decision based on what she thinks is best for her. And anyone
Are
that
those the traits of hers that do you share?
I do. I am a very stubborn person. I like everyone could be saying yes, and I'm going to say, hold on, right quick. Let me just double check to see if this is the right thing to do, because I just don't feel it. I'm like a gut person, and I really feel like I am strong, but I do allow myself to be vulnerable around the right people. And I would also say my new character. Like I'm writing my new book.
Now, let Lauren.
My new character is my favorite.
Now, Lauren.
Yeah. My new.
That was so messy. That was so uncalled for.
I had to think about it. I was like, you know what? This one kind of takes the cake, actually.
Is it all connected to these characters?
No, but they're in the same universe. So we're back in Greer, and there it is connected to a character from my first series, just one of the sisters, but it is focused on new casts. You do have Governor Boom and Judge Boom. They do pop. Governor Carter and Judge Boom, they do pop in to help out in the situation. And so
you gonna wrap up these characters yet? How you jump into a hole?
I was writing one day. I was writing one.
This lady said, you know what? I'm gonna put a pin in y'all. This was great. It was wonderful visiting with you guys. I'm gonna come back.
Yeah. So okay. So I'm working on 2 books. I'm working on the second book of Playing for Keeps, the sports romance. That's going to be a basketball, and it's focusing on the Mason's brother Bash. And then I'm writing my first standalone. Now, my standalone, that female character, she is my favorite because this book is funny. I think I would say quirky. It's lighthearted. It does get dark in just a few scenes.
You're very stressful. You're very stressful. That's what you are. Very stressful here.
Just a few scenes, and the male character, he you can visualize his aura, and the female character, she's given she's 35. I'm 35, and she's a regular woman. She's like a teacher, and she's just trying to figure out her life still. And so,
who at 35? Me.
Yes.
Raylan wants to know. Okay, those 2 female characters. What about the men?
I would say I love Mace. He's a lover boy. I love a good lover boy. And then I also love a good man who doesn't say too much. You just kind of know by his actions. He just needs to say a few words and then that's enough. So I would say Gabe, he's in my third book, Love You Till the End. He's ex-military, he's disabled. He's similar to my husband. My husband's ex-military, disabled, all this other stuff, and he's just he don't talk much, but you don't have to talk much. And so it's I like that aspect. And Mace, I love a good lover boy. He's gonna treat you well and spoil you and love on you.
Okay, so if it's one thing from this story that you wanted your readers to walk away knowing, a takeaway upon completing the world around us, what would it be?
I think it's really, it really doesn't matter where you come from or what you've been through, that we're all deserving of our happy ending. We're all deserving and worthy of love. I think oftentimes with a lot of love stories, it has to be kind of like that straight and narrow where, you don't want to experience those heavy parts, or, you have to have this perfect female character where, you have to be the perfect person. And that's just not the case. You don't even have to be healed to be loved. And so I really feel like that's something that I want people to take away, is that, no matter what you've been through, whether you're loved by, a spouse or partner, or just friends or family, you deserve that.
That's beautiful. You answered my next question. There were a few hints and foreshadowing moments. So who from the crew is up next to tell their story?
That's Bash. So Bash is in there a little bit. He a little quiet. He's a little grumpy. He is
he was more of a jokester to me. He was always because he was always coming at Maze. He was always
Yes, he's like that middle sibling that thinks they're the oldest kind of, and thinks he's wise. And so he is going to be the next brother of focus, and the female character is going to be his boss. So so her name is Lottie. She was in there. She was in World Around Us. And at the very beginning, at the auction scene and at the end. And so they're going to have a past. and their past is pretty wild. Is going to take place. They both went to Georgia State University, and yeah, they got into some
Yeah,
things.
because how she owned? Because I was like, wonder if she was older than him because she owns the team.
She got a story to tell. She was a hot mess back in the day. She did anything she could to get what she wanted.
I like those kind of women. They're my favorite kind of women. I love them kind of women.
Yes, and she took no prisoners. And so, she had a goal and, it separated them, but she came back to what she wanted. And she said, let me draft him right quick. So,
Okay, ma'am. All right. So, that is a wrap for the questions. Thank you so much
thank
for joining
you.
us, for spending time with Sistah Girls Book Club, for entertaining me and my shenanigans. For those who have not yet, where can our Sistah Girls find you to keep up with your work?
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I am trying to do better with my posting. I've been posting. I post like
a very busy woman.
I know. I am on Instagram primarily, but I am always trying to do updates on a weekly basis. I always slide in my DMs if you want to yell at me when you read one of these crazy books.
I wish I would have known that because
yes, I love talking. And then listen, just don't read my first series. It's the most toxic series ever, but I love good toxic love stories.
I would definitely slid in your DMs because I just felt so betrayed. Like they lied to me to get me to read this, and I wanted, like, I literally was crying. First of all, I'm a Cancer, so I was bawling. Like, why is this happening? This is not a love story. I wanted to read a love story.
I laugh, like not laugh, but when I'm like reading reviews and if it's like a bad review, it's usually around like, I thought this was a mess. I am being gutted. I gotta put this down.
I was like, I thought this was a love story. Like, what am I reading right now? Why is this happening?
It's gonna get there.
Third. I definitely, like, I was melting. Like, I'm like, and then I was PMSing. I was just like, oh my gosh, why would you do that? I was like, no. And then when the Lucy came back, I was like, oh my gosh, she's gonna ruin her life. I knew that people was gonna get her off, but it was just so dramatic. Like, I just was like,
oh my god,
I'm serious, because like, look at how dramatic I am retelling it. I was so mad. Like, who is this Lauren person? Where did she come from? And why is this happening? And I was like, why did people tell me to read this book?
Oh my gosh, I love that. I knew that sounded bad, but I love that.
It was very bad. It was very. I was like, I don't think I like her. I was like, this is not nice. I think she's a nice person.
Oh my god! Just wait till the next one, y'all. You're gonna be like, oh, she's a mess.
Well, is it whichever one you finish first is going to be next, or?
Yes. So I am finished with the standalone. Yes, I don't know when I'm gonna release it. I don't know.
Well, if you're done, why are you sitting on it?
I have a whole cover for it and all.
So what's going on?
I was debating on whether I was going to submit a query for traditional, like for it to be traditionally published or self-published. And just knowing the type of person that I am an anxious person. I am a control freak. I am like, this is my baby. So I really feel like I should just go ahead and start marketing it for indie.
You are sounding more and more like Tiffany every moment.
Listen,
who's your favorite?
I lose my mind. I'm like, oh my god, do we have to do? I need to do this. No, don't change this. Like, I drive my editor crazy because, like, thank God for her, because when I first started, I didn't like. I was like, choose some cheap editing service, and they did a terrible job on my first series. And I was like, I want to do this right for the world around us. And then so I found an editor, Jackie Reeves, and she was awesome. She went back and did some of my backlist. And for the world around us, I said, okay, So my novellas were a little different. They were kind of short. This one goes past and present. I was like, and it's everywhere. And I stressed her out. She made so many changes. I went with like 75%, but I kept questioning her. I was like, are you sure I should do that?
She did a good job.
She was awesome. She was so awesome. And she did this standalone.
So we are looking forward to the standalone, and we are hoping for it maybe in Q2.
Yes, I might just do that in May.
May is very far, but okay. Yes. Well, thank you all for joining us. Don't forget to follow Lauren, read her other books if you have not, and continue to support her. Thank you so much, Lauren.
Thank you.
For everyone who joined in the chat. Have a good evening. Have a wonderful week.
Thank you. Good night.